Hi, my name is Courtney. I'm Peter's middle child. I'm also his favorite. I know this because he told me on more than one occasion. I even have it on tape, so if you haven't had a chance to watch the video yet, you'll hear him say it on there. But really, I think we were all his favorites. He loved Jenna, Ryan, and I in different but equally unending ways. He always mourned our losses and celebrated our successes. My dad said it didn't matter what day we celebrated a holiday, as long as we eventually got together. He often stretched out birthdays over the course of a week or a month. We celebrated Christmases in August on our Stevens family camping trip every summer because his winters in Florida separated us at Christmas time. When he passed away in November on the day after Thanksgiving, it felt like a natural choice to wait until the spring, with the sun shining and the flowers blooming to celebrate his life. Thank you all for joining us today for our celebration. Every detail of this day was planned with him in mind, and he would have loved to visit with you all. My dad wasn't perfect and had many faults, but the good outweighed the bad, and he is greatly missed. This morning, my son Andrew said he wished that we were just celebrating Grandpa Pete's birthday today so that he could be here to celebrate as well. The day before my dad passed, a couple nurses who had come to love him during his 2-month stay in the hospital came down to the ICU to say their goodbyes. He fought a hard fight and desperately wanted to get better to see his grandkids grow up. We all shared that same wish. But God is still good despite our circumstances, and I know Jesus welcomed my dad with open arms on the evening of November 28th. His sudden death shocked me so much because we were all so hopeful. It seems weird to say his death was sudden while his symptoms stretched for months and even years. Dad was always positive, never complaining about the amount of pain he was in or how uncomfortable he was. And because of that, even my view of how he looked was through rose-colored glasses. Looking back now, I realize how sick he was. I can see all the signs. Replaying conversations, I can hear all the clues. Comparing his face during his last months versus years before, I realize how hard he fought to stay alive. All the evidence was there, so I shouldn't have been blindsided, but his positive outlook entranced me into thinking he was doing better than he actually was. All the hospital staff spoke fondly of him, about how funny and friendly he was. He certainly wasn't a typical down-and-out patient. We had some precious times in the hospital together, sharing memories, watching the Bills win, and generally soaking up every second we had together. On one visit, we noticed he had a beard, something we hadn't seen in almost 40 years. He asked us to shave his face, which I found out later he had been doing for himself, but on this day he apparently wanted to be pampered. While Jenna was doing the best she could with the world's oldest electric razor, he looked over at me with the biggest boyhood grin, as if he was Squints from The Sandlot, who had just tricked the girl into doing what he wanted. He asked me to take a picture of that moment, and I'm so glad to have that memory. My dad loved giving advice. He couldn't help himself. It just poured out of him. He was so well-read and constantly watched the news, so his brain was filled with knowledge. He loved sharing it, not as a way to show how smart he was, although he did love showing how smart he was, but because he genuinely believed these little bits of knowledge would be a gift to the receiver. From real estate to the stock market to health trends to educational developments, you name it, and he could speak into your life about it. Every time the sun shines on a cold day, I think of my dad. He always told me that I just needed 5 minutes a day of the sun on my hands to keep the gloom of Rochester winters away. He said most people put on gloves and shield the sun, but by taking the gloves off for just 5 minutes a day, our bodies get enough vitamin D to make a huge impact on our health and mood. I've made it a point to go for a walk on sunny days, regardless of the outside temperature. In the middle of winter, I turned my face towards the sun, and although my hands were freezing, I left them ungloved for a while. It turns out we actually need more like 15 minutes a day of sunshine, but he got it mostly right. Another time he told us the trick for staying awake on a long drive is to eat grapes. He said each grape is like a little burst of energy that will keep you going if you start to get tired. And if it gets really bad, pull over and take a quick walk. As it turns out, grapes actually contain small amounts of melatonin. None of us ever had the heart to correct him, but he was right about the walking part. Dad believed everything in life had to be earned. There were no freebies, unless he was garbage picking treasures. In those cases, there were lots of freebies. He gave me my first job at like 6 years old, paying me a penny a paper to assemble mailings for his company. He taught us that learning to work hard and persevering are important skills, and that child labor makes the world go round. He essentially got me my first job by talking me up to a local dry cleaner before my interview. The day of my interview, the owner told me, "I'll be honest, I've known your dad for years, and he's been telling me how great you are, so the job is basically yours." And Dad continued to tell me how proud of me he was, even when I left my career as a teacher to raise our 4 kids. Dad was an avid writer, a skill I think he passed on to the 3 of us. He communicated both pleasure and displeasure in the written word. I was surprised and saddened to find out that he didn't write a final letter to me, Jenna, and Ryan. It seemed uncharacteristic of the life that he lived, but it's proof that he didn't think his life was going to end so soon. For a short time, I mourned the fact that there was no final letter, but then I realized I have a lifetime of letters from him. From emails in my inbox, to handwritten letters I saved, to monologues on our old family videos. I have an abundance of his written and spoken words stored up, and for that I'm so very grateful. Again, if you haven't watched the video yet, be sure to do so. I felt like I was hanging out with him throughout the entire editing process. During his final month of life, he told us through teary eyes that he wanted his legacy to live on. Well, Dad, your legacy lives on through the memories you recorded for us, through the notes you wrote us, through the experiences that you gave us, and through the skills you taught us. And we pass all that on to the next generation. As long as I can remember, every Christmas morning we would burn the trunk of the previous year's Christmas tree. We would gather together in front of the fireplace and thank God for bringing us all through another year. Dad continued this tradition with Karen's family in Florida, burning the tree in an outdoor fire pit. I knew this was important to Dad, but I never appreciated it as a child. I viewed it as a required, long, drawn-out pause before the real excitement of presents began. As an adult, I wondered if this tradition was rooted in the wound my dad felt from the death of his sister at such a young age. Now I've realized, until you start experiencing heartbreaking losses, it's hard to fully appreciate the blessing of togetherness. Dad didn't live an extravagant lifestyle, but he certainly lived an extravagant life. He made friends with everyone he met along his walks, while others in similar situations may have been staring at their phones. His neighbors could always hear him coming because of his self-invented weighted walking belt that clang-clanged with every step. He found treasure in trash and garage sailing, and often gifted those treasures as Christmas and August presents. Some of the highs and lows include a broken extension cord, a pre-scratched winning lotto ticket, a brand new meat slicer, the towels we used on our first visit to Florida, gifted 20 years later, flood waders, Nerf guns, a very ugly Christmas Santa, a used foot bath, and a paper map of his beloved Sugar Creek campground. He signed every letter as Peter W. Stevens, but refused to tell us what his middle name was. He always said the W stood for Wild Man. I cannot tell you how excited I was when I saw Peter Wallace Stevens printed on a certificate when I was around 8 years old. I felt like I had won the lottery and not the pre-scratched ticket kind. It's impossible to sum up a life well lived in a few short speeches, picture collages, and videos, but the evidence is here in this pavilion. The life and legacy of Peter W. Stevens can be summarized as friends, family, and service. Each one of us can testify to at least one time that Dad positively impacted our lives. We can probably also testify to a time he made us shrug our shoulders and shake our heads. But the beauty of looking back on a life lost is that we can highlight the positive and forget the rest. My dad was a skilled gardener, something he learned from his mom, who we affectionately referred to as Nana. His yards were like something out of the secret garden. He often shared clippings and bulbs with family and friends so they could enjoy the beauty of gardening as well. We invite you to take one of the flowers from the tables home and plant it in your garden. The pots have a label that says "Carry On" because he always wore a bracelet containing those words. While life has forever been changed, we will carry on because that's what Peter wants us to do.